So as we're coming in, remember, no one is standing. We're all sitting. There are enough seats for everyone. We're all friends here. So, look at you all go quiet. That's excellent. You actually technically have another minute to chat amongst yourselves before we kick off. So I'm just going to keep encouraging everyone to keep making your way down. If you were standing in the last session, if you could find a seat, just so that we're making sure we're keeping all of the aisles, etc., free and clear, just in case that emergency siren goes off and we have to leave, you know. So that would be great. So any comrades who are standing, if you can just make your way down or up, just find an empty seat or two. There's a few down the front here. But if we can just fill in all the gaps.
977 seats, 870 people. The maths is good.
All right. So, if anyone who is standing can please make your way down to one of the seats, that would be totes awesome. All right, so welcome back. I hope morning tea was everything that you dreamt it was going to be. So we are now joined by 4 amazing HSRs who have agreed very kindly to share their stories of how they identified hazards in their workplaces, the barriers and challenges they faced, and how these were overcome to create safer workplaces. So I'm going to introduce them each as they get up to speak. And so that means, unfortunately, for the 2 of you down the end there, you've got more time to get anxious about it, just so you know, all right? So first here, I'm going to kick off with Jackie Sims. Jackie has been working as a plumber for 10 years and was first elected as an HSR in 2020. She's a tireless and effective advocate in making sure that construction workplaces, which are some of the most deadly in Victoria, are safer and healthier. Would you please, now, Jackie, you can come up here or you can do it from, Jackie's coming up. Would you please welcome Jackie?
Hi, my name's Jackie Sims-Coots. I've been working in the plumbing industry for roughly 10 years. I started my plumbing apprenticeship working on domestic construction sites. In that industry, there's a lot of smaller sites and smaller contractor bosses, each with only a handful of employees. There were a lot of unsafe practices and people taking shortcuts on safety on them smaller sites. But at that age when I had started and the experience I had, I didn't know any better. On top of that, I was an apprentice. They weren't always treated the greatest either, and as well as being a young woman in a male-dominant industry. About 2 years into my apprenticeship, I transferred across to commercial jobs. The difference regarding how to work safely were eye-opening. Workers had a lot more power to push back and insist something was done safely, even if it took more time. Being on a strong union site allowed me the space and confidence to develop my skills. I would not be talking to you today if it wasn't for the support of my co-workers within the Plumbers Union. It made me realise the importance of having a strong OH&S structure and the representation makes. It stops injuries, saves lives, and makes sure we can all go home safe and healthy. In 2020, I was nominated for a union delegate and HSR role and never looked back. The construction site I want to talk to you about today is in an area of Melbourne that used to have heavy industry. So as a result of that, it's riddled with asbestos, not just in the cement sheeting that can be removed quite easily, but also broken up and debris fragments within the soil. As plumbers on the job, my members dig the trenches and also lay the pipes within the trenches. When it comes to asbestos, it's pretty much universally accepted that it is a serious hazard, but that doesn't mean that there is an agreement on how best to control the risk of the exposure, as every job and every time you find it, it can be different. My concern in the safety of the members of my DWG working within these conditions, the bosses always have an eye on productivity and costs and trying to deliver the project within their budget and timeframe. In order to understand how we deal with OH&S, you need to understand a little bit about how our work is structured. In my line of work, we move from construction site to construction site. Builds can last anywhere from a few months to a few years. On any construction site, there are multiple subcontractors and trades on site as part of the build. Each trade has their own union, and the way we set up the DWG means that each trade also have their own DWG. There are hazards that are particular to each profession, and having someone who is qualified to do that work is the best way to appreciate the hazards and the risks. Especially in the bigger builds, the head contractor, who has the ultimate control on the site, is likely to be represented by a project manager. Their focus is on the bigger picture, and they often do not have the technical knowledge or background of any of the construction trades. So to ensure that there is consistency with the collective hazards, we set up a multiple employer committee involving all the HSRs as well as the head contractor. This ensures that the risks that affect multiple work groups on site are dealt with properly. It also helps to ensure that the risks controls are implemented in a way that does not create more risks as an unintended consequence for other workers. And when my current job ends, the DWG, the OH&S committee, and all the relationships formed end, and the next job we need to re-establish and negotiate the OH&S frameworks all over again, form new relationships, and renegotiate policies and procedures around the same types of hazards all over again. At my current work site, we have agreed to have scheduled safety committee meetings weekly between all HSRs on site and the head contractor. We also follow this by a scheduled safety walk. This isn't the only time we meet or conduct inspections. Throughout the week, we deal with issues as they arise. Regarding controlling the risk of asbestos exposure, we have developed systems of air monitoring and what to do when the asbestos is found while digging. Depending on the type of contamination, it may be able to be removed or sealed off and excavated after work hours when there is no staff on site. If I or any of the other HSRs feel like there is inadequate controlled risk in a certain area, we will stop work whilst its safety concerns are addressed. This has held up some elements of the build by weeks, but some of the subcontractors have been unhappy with the decisions I made. So far, everyone has been able to be moved to other areas until the matters are resolved, but this is never always guaranteed. My union organiser is always there for support and has attended site to help resolve issues, but also careful not to lose my role as a HSR, thinking that they can then just go over to my organiser as a next level. Some advice that I can give on being a HSR is always be approachable to people on site, make yourself known. When someone new starts on site, put time aside to walk around and check up on your DWG. You don't need to know all the answers straight away. It's fine to say that you don't know and you'll find out, but make sure you do find out and follow up with your DWG who was asking the question. Know where to go to get the answers you need. It might be research and answer for yourself or call someone within your organisation to get the answers that you need. Make sure you communicate clearly with management and your DWG from the start and keep the communication open. Make sure you include other HSRs in what you are working on, especially if it might involve them or their DWG. Don't let personalities dominate decisions. You are not there to fight with managers. Concentrate on an issue and how best to resolve them. There is a time for compromise, but not every issue requires compromise. If you are confident in your view is right, then stick with that and don't back down. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jackie. So next we have Gay Coles. She's worked as a nurse for over 30 years. She was first elected as an HSR in 2023. Along with her colleague Jen Gamble and Victorian paramedic Jason Learmonth, who should be in the audience today, Gay won WorkSafe's HSR of the Year in 2023. Did you know that nursing as a profession has one of the highest injury rates in Victoria? Well, Gay and Jen's advocacy has changed some dangerous practices for the better. Would you please welcome Gay Coles? And just a reminder, you can ask questions through the Slido app of our HSRs, and we'll try and get to them at the end. So start asking your questions.
Hello everybody and welcome today. Aren't we wonderful people representing all of our colleagues across Victoria? Give yourself a big clap. As I've been introduced, my name is Gay Coles. I've been a nurse and a member of the ANMF, my union, for 40 years. October the 4th, we clicked that over. My designated work group is 270 people, and it has a combination of nurses, surgeons, technicians, cleaners, stores people, and we represent all of them. So across the time that we've had some very difficult situations, and as you've heard that nurses have high injury rates. Most of those are related to manual handling, which we've finally finessed very, very well in the operating theatre. So we're very good with manual handling. Some of our recent problems have been retrospected building fits and retrospected cleaning protocols. So one of our big achievements over the last few years has been getting automatic doors in our stores areas. So we would have people trundling along the passage with a huge amount of stores equipment on a trolley, and they had to pull up suddenly, open the doors and then go in and close the doors behind them and put all their goods away and come back. So we did a risk assessment using the OH&S management group as well as our designated work group stakeholders, and we found that we were very reasonable to replace these doors with automatic doors so we didn't have that manual handling pull-up issue. Another one, we beautifully created a new surgery admission hub. So lovely fish tank and lovely marble desks. But they put corners on the desks. We're at thigh height for people running in and out of the offices. So we're finding that people were getting corked thighs and lots of bruising. So we were verbally told about this as HSRs, but no risk mans had gone in. So we need a risk reporting protocol, which we're getting across slowly but surely. So we did a risk analysis, and along came building and engineering and stuck some silicone caps on these areas, which didn't take away the problem at all. So we still continued to get bruising and problems like that. And then we finally came to the conclusion that we're going to issue a PIN for improvement, but we didn't have to get there. They came in out of hours and rounded all the surfaces. So we've got some very happy nurses that can run in and out of a desk without actually being injured. One of our really big moments that have taken us a long period of time, in the operating suite we do bypass surgery. And part and parcel of bypass surgery is a bypass machine and perfusionists that run the machine. So the blood is taken out of the patient, oxygenated and put back into the patient. So about 4 years ago, the government changed the chemical that was used to clean these perfusion bypass machines. However, they didn't give any kind of training. It was just recommended that we change the type of chlorine base that we were using because the previous one had shown to grow some fungus despite all the cleaning. So our perfusionists, which we only had 3 of at the time for cardiac surgery, had to clean these machines over a 5-hour period. And the chemical came in a powder form, which then needed to be mixed with water and then put through the perfusion machines. The powder in itself, we noticed that staff were having respiratory issues in a couple of rooms away or a room away when this powder was being decanted. So of course we've used a couple of resources, so ChemAlert, some investigation and the MDA forms, and we found this to be an extremely toxic chemical which can cause permanent lung disease, fetal and fertility problems, skin, eye and other exposure points problems. So immediately we escalated this to management and put up signs to say when this was being decanted, we managed to get some P1 masks and PPE so people could be protected while they were using it. However, we needed a system to make this safer out of hours because we have 10 theatres and, as I said, 270 staff over a 24-hour period, and a really small area to do this with a high traffic load. So while this 5-hour process is going, you might have 30 people go through that room at any one time because we needed to pack our instruments after an operation off and send them for cleaning. So we approached management, so the Deputy Director of Nursing and the Deputy Director of Surgery to make a case. And we found there was a lot of resistance to get this changed, and then COVID hit. And then we had ECMO machines, so people's lungs weren't working, so we also had to bypass smaller machines that were breathing for these people, and they had to be cleaned the same way. So we had 12 ECMO machines and 3 cardiac bypass machines getting done by 3 perfusionists in a not-for-purpose room, and they were spending 100 hours a week at work to make sure patients were safe and to make sure that adequate cleaning was done. They also ran the ECMO machines in intensive care. So what we were getting is extremely fatigued staff who couldn't drive home. We had to send them home in taxis, or they slept in their cars and came back. They weren't getting rest periods. So this compounded the safe practice of decanting this stuff and mixing it up. So a toxic chemical in a not fit for purpose room by extremely fatigued people. So we came up with some recommendations as HSRs to see if we had several meetings, including our designated work group and risk management reporting. That's the biggest thing that you've got to get over, people telling you about the risk. And then seeking information from our designated work group how they thought this could be fixed. So we came up with a chance to fix this by using our theatre technicians. We would train them up, and out of hours they would clean these machines. But we were never given any money to increase our pool of technicians, of course. They were all going to do it in their time that they were already there. But they're very busy people. We're only employed one for what we needed. So we really needed more staff. Well, we came to a stalemate with that. We had several more meetings, and then I decided to discuss it with my union. I didn't ask Renata, so keep that in mind. And looking at my OH&S Act, and we found that we had a systems of work problem. There was failures for fatigue, there was failures for hazardous chemicals, and there was failures of the management staff to actually correct this for us. So with the advice of Yota, who's here today, and our ANMF reps, we had some good feedback as to how to fill out a PIN. We've got to remember that it's a very powerful tool and we use it with a lot of discretion. So this was the first time I'd filled out a PIN. So we filled out the PIN, downloading the paperwork from WorkSafe, and then Jen came and we both pushed the button, send, and thought, oh my God, please, please don't kill us for this. We also sent a copy to Rashika, also my HSR mentor at ANMF, and she sent back, oh my God, you've missed out putting this, this, this and this in it. So by the time we've got to the meeting, we've got 3 pins, one for fatigue, one for hazardous chemicals, and one for using an unfit for purpose area. So the first thing that we were said in the management meeting with OH&S and our deputy directors was, sorry, this pin number is not functional. And I said, well, here's 3 more, and they are functional, and they've finessed to the nth degree. So the end result for that, after 3 years of a very, very hard battle, we gave them the way to fix this. We benchmarked other hospitals nationally and internationally and found that the most popular way of dealing with this was a specialty company of well-trained individuals who would come in out of hours and clean our ECMO and bypass machines. So it was a fabulous result for everybody. We got an increase in our number of perfusionists to help with fatigue, and cleaning is not allowed to be done in the not fit for purpose room. So it was an extreme win-win. Thank you. And I can't say this enough. Use your resources, use your union, use Ask Renata, that's a good place to start. Ask WorkSafe, there's WorkSafe HSR support group there, and make sure that you never go and see management on your own. That's very intimidating. And work positively and collaboratively with your designated work group because they get on board. How are we going, Derek, for time? We're good. I've got a quickie from this week. I've written out a wrist man after nearly keeling over from a terrible smell. When we do hip replacements, we have a bone glue, bone cement, which is called polymethylmethacrylate, PPMM. And we've had a lot of new staff since COVID. COVID has knocked off all of our 60-plus-year-old staff members who quietly left the service. And with this polymethacrylate, it's stored on the shelf in 2 things, one powder and liquid. And the liquid is extremely toxic. It can cause respiratory distress, fetal abnormalities, dizziness, and skin irritation as well. So I was putting some stuff in the rubbish and I thought, oh, I know that smell, when I could hardly breathe and left the room. Got myself a P1 respirator mask and went back in, and we triple bagged it. But the problem was that new staff did not know that you can't throw this into the rubbish when the ampule's accidentally broken. So we went through the system of investigating how it got thrown out, letting people know if you mix it with the powder it's completely neutralised and that it can't go into the rubbish. We managed to get environmental services to come and pick up our triple bagged methyl methacrylate and put an MDA form on the outside, and then they store it in an isolated area to be disposed of properly. And that's just a quickie little one that we have at work, so that's this week. And of course I've filled out a risk ban, and we're going to have some education which comes under knowledge and training of your ACT. And at all times, your ACT is your best friend, your union is your best friend, Trades Hall is your best friend, and WorkSafe is your best friend. Use those things to get the best results for your designated work group. I've recently found ChatGPT. I can put in provisional intention notice under the Act 2004, and it'll come up with every step I have to take to fill out a PIN. So don't underestimate your resources, and we're a wonderful group of people. And I've also got QR coding in now, so if I've got a person that comes along and they want to tell me about a problem and I'm not there, QR code, this is the problem I have, can we get it fixed? And I can read that at any time. So bring it on. Okay, thank you.
Okay, he's got a lot of best friends. including ChatGPT. All right, so I'd lastly like to introduce Chloe McKenzie and Ben Gook. They're both elected HSRs and they work in education. They've been HSRs since 2023 and 2021. Together with other HSRs in their DWG, they've made massive strides in tackling some really complicated psychosocial hazards in their industry. Please welcome Chloe and Ben.
Hi, so my name's Ben and I work as an academic in the Faculty of Arts and I've been an HSR since 2021.
And my name is Chloe. I work as a professional staff member in the Faculty of Arts. I was first elected as a HSR in 2023 and the reason I became a HSR is the story that we'll be telling you today.
We also want to acknowledge the 3 other HSRs in our DWG who are not on stage with us today but are very close by. And indeed all the other HSRs across quite a considerable campus.
I also just want to give a shout out to any HSRs here from the CFMEU today. I've been reading a book and it's very clear to me, I think it's called Framework of Flesh by Humphrey McQueen, and it's very clear to me that many of the health and safety protections we have today we wouldn't have if it wasn't for the work of workers in the CFMEU and the BLF before them. And just want to shout out that we stand in solidarity with you in your fight to return your union to rank and file worker control. So our story starts when I called Ben about some issues I was having in my team. So there was only me and another staff member in our team, and the department we were assigned to was more than double the size of the other departments. So it meant that we were essentially doing the double the work of our colleagues who were assigned to smaller departments. So this led to stress leave, burnout, and a number of other physical and psychosocial health issues for us.
So after our requests for an extra person were rebuffed, we decided to issue a PIN for a breach of section 21(1). So WorkSafe visited and advised us to withdraw the PIN on a technicality or they would cancel it, so we did. But even though the PIN was withdrawn, we learned a lot from that experience. I think it might have been the first time in the faculty that a PIN had actually been issued. So we agreed with our OHS director that a risk assessment would be undertaken by the university on the issue of overwork in the team that Chloe was in. This was done much slower than we hoped, and it became clear that without the strict timeline of a PIN, any controls could be really drawn out and action delayed. Also that to get effective controls in place, we would need to tackle a broader systemic set of issues, and for that we needed more evidence.
So I got myself elected as a HSR, filling a vacancy, and we decided that a HSR survey was a great way to proceed.
So the benefits of doing a survey include that it's entirely anonymous. So we ensured the survey, which we did online, and the platform we used captured no personal data or metadata. The data was only accessible by HSRs, not by management. We assured staff that identifiable statements would not be shared without consultation or redaction. And the survey also identified hazards that are deeply and widely felt across the whole DWG and gives it a kind of quantitative value that you can present in that form. It also gave us a baseline, so the overall survey responses have been archived and we can run the survey again and compare responses over time to determine whether things have improved or got worse.
So we actually use Victorian Trades Hall Council survey template that's up there. You can get on the website, but we did make a few tweaks to it to make it a little bit more relevant to our industry and our DWG, and we also added an ability for staff to leave comments about their experiences. But it wasn't plain sailing. We did come up against a few barriers to rolling the survey out. So one battle that we're still fighting is that our workplace doesn't give us access to a list of staff in our DWGs, and they were resistant to circulating the survey. Our requests for additional data, such as aggregated and anonymised data on sick leave patterns, bullying reports, work cover claims, vacancies and staffing numbers in our DWG, were handballed from senior managers to the OHS team, to HR, and then to workplace relations, who's sort of like the senior HR team across the university. Over a year later, we still haven't received this data, and we are entitled to this information, so it's very frustrating. But with the help of some new HSRs that we've got, so we originally had, I think, 2 of us, and now we've got all 5 positions filled, it's making it much easier for us to continue to fight that battle.
So the level of participation actually took us by surprise. We had 186 surveys completed in about 2 weeks. Our DWG has about 800 staff, with about 600 fixed term and continuing and 200 casuals who, unfortunately, the casuals weren't on the mailing list, which again is an issue with the kind of access to data that we have. So we missed out some people there, but such high levels of engagement really showed us that people felt strongly about the hazards in the workplace.
There was largely a match-up in terms of issues between professional and academic staff, with job demands being the single biggest issue for both cohorts, which I don't think was a surprise to us. And one thing we have been, I guess, putting a lot of effort into highlighting is that there are equity impacts to these. So high job demands and, say, a disability or a single parenting make the impacts very unevenly felt, and we know of several people who for example, have had to take stress leave of over a year, or have had autoimmune disorders or like chronic pain and injuries that have flared up due to unprecedented levels of high work demands in our sector.
So this is, I think we have now some of the data from the survey. This is the quantitative evaluation. So you can see that just over a third of respondents rated job demands a 5 out of 5 issue, a very serious issue. And if you include 4 out of 5 responses as well, you can see that over 60% of respondents rate this as a 4 to 5 issue.
And we also have some qualitative statements that we collected around job demands. And one that really struck me that I'll read out is, "I love my job, but the workload is killing me. I can't do my job in 5 long, 9 or 10-hour days, so I work most weekends, but I still feel behind all the time. I'm exhausted, I'm letting people down, my family is resentful, it's not sustainable, please help."
It was really important to report back and communicate with the DWG. So we had a workplace meeting with our DWG last year where we shared the results and asked them to weigh in on possible solutions and next steps. We then emailed out the results to all the staff in our DWG and sent it separately in the faculty to the Dean and Executive Director, so quite high management, with some requests that a working group be formed to talk about solutions to the work practices and systems that needed to be changed. Unfortunately, the working group was never formed, due in part to enterprise bargaining that ramped up in the second half of 2023, meaning the energy and attention of the uni and the workers was directed elsewhere. So we see there that without us pushing, management didn't proactively take it on themselves and let the issue kind of fall away. But despite this, we've had some great wins from the PIN and the survey processes.
So due to the pressure that we put on our faculty, they then went to the university and successfully petitioned them to lift the professional staff caps, which had actually limited the number of professional staff in each faculty to, I think, a certain head count or FTE. And they actually were able to replace it across the university with a ratio of professional staff to academic staff, which meant that departments that had larger academic cohorts would get more professional staff. So it actually meant that in my department, our team of 2 became a team of 4, and another team of 4 became a team of 7. So that's 2 teams that were almost doubled in size because of the pressure we put on. And I think it's the first time in years that myself and some of our colleagues had actually been able to manage our workloads without just basically constant overtime, burnout and stress. And it was really good because workers engaged over our PIN and survey process, so it helped them realise that being active and participating does drive change, even if it changes slowly. It gave them hope, it destigmatised mental health conversations, and it made people more aware that their frustrations and worries were not individual burdens or a failing on their part, but actually a systemic issue that was impacting many across our faculty and even university. And we also had a great impact on other HSRs and union delegates at our organisation who reached out for support in running surveys in their own DWGs. And it's also shone a light on HSRs, and we've had several staff reach out for support across other DWGs in our organisation to nominate for and be elected as HSRs. So it's really brought out the whole, psychosocial health and the role of HSRs in a way that I think wasn't visible to people in our organisation before.
So a year on, we ran a second version of the survey, which is, as I said, useful because we have that baseline data from last year and currently processing the results to report back to our DWG. We've now had HSRs from 2 other faculties and 1 central professional staff work area run their own version of the survey. Faculties at other unis have asked us to help them set up something similar. We're working with the NTEU to set up a HSR network across Victorian universities to share resources and advice on these types of issues. So while there's still a lot to be done and things are turning slowly, we think we are making a difference. Thanks.
All right, we have time for a couple of questions. So I'm going to go with the first question, which is addressed to all of you. So the question is, being an effective HSR can take its toll on you. So what drives you to continue to be an HSR?
Safety in the workplace, I think. Keeping my colleagues safe. Just remember that Westgate Bridge fell down on the 16th of October. My uncle was on that bridge and he became a HSR after recovery. So there's loads of ways of making people safe and keeping our colleagues safe, and I think that's what makes me want to be a HSR.
Yeah, I think similar. I think when I read, when we did the survey and I read some of the qualitative ones that you saw up on the screen before, when you've got people just saying like, please help me and I don't know how I can go on. Sometimes when you're having, frankly, a really shit day and you're exhausted and you've been in a meeting with management that's been really hard and you feel like you're not really getting anywhere, you read that stuff and you just think, like, we've got to keep pushing with this stuff. I think another thing for me has been, working with Ben, working with Katie and Jim and our colleague Max, who I think isn't here today, but having a cohort of HSRs has made it heaps easier. And we've started doing like meetups across our university of HSRs across as well. And I think having that network where you can actually share your experiences and advice and stuff, and sometimes just vent and be like, yeah, I had this management meeting and it was really shit, but having them encourage you to keep going. And just your DWG as well, like we're both union delegates as well, so I think we're kind of experienced in, sometimes things turn slowly and it takes a while to get a campaign or a pin or whatever it is going to have an issue addressed, but I think the members that you're representing, as you said, I think keep you going.
You don't have to. You do.
Just making sure that everyone is able to go home safely and being able to make that be a part of that and make sure that people know they do have a voice to be able to voice their concerns, that they can go home safely.
Legends. All right. There's a question here around, because Gay, you talked about the fact that you represent quite a diverse range of workers, whereas in some cases, in your cases, it's a more discrete grouping, right? So I guess the question is, are there advantages, disadvantages to a DWG being quite small and manageable versus are there pros in being able to say that you speak for a very large group? Do you have a view about that?
I have a view about the large group because we're talking about disciplines, surgeons, anaesthetists, nurses, technicians, cleaners, and sometimes what the surgeon is doing is what contributes to an unsafe practice. So being able to then go across the whole group and manage that situation with the whole DWG, then you can address it at where it's coming from. So you've got that control. Might I add, we've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've now got 6 HSRs, finally.
I mean, I think one issue we've had is just visibility. As I said, we have nearly 800 staff. Like that's our own kind of count as well, I think. We've had all these issues about getting an actual list of staff in our DWG, so that's an issue. If you don't know the people, they can't find you and talk to you. But I think, as we said in the presentation, like doing this kind of activity, making it more visible to people, making it more of a kind of everyday culture of finding people to talk to about these systemic issues that individuals have. I think there is a power when it is a bigger group, if you can get, like we did with the data, that there's more momentum behind it potentially. Yeah.
In my industry, we have more so smaller groups which work better because for us is that you're qualified in your trade, you understand the work that your DWG is doing, more so than a broader spectrum across the whole construction industry. Knowing your trade is a lot of then being able to represent them and understanding what work they have to do and how they can actually do it safely.
So if I could summarise that, there are pros and cons to each, as long as what you have is good representative structures that mean that you actually know that you are speaking for your DWG, however big that is. All right, this was a question, Jackie, it was specifically for you. Firstly, were there challenges for you in being in a male-dominated industry? This is a question that's come from the floor, to say that. Were there challenges for you in that?
There was. I have been in the industry for quite some time, so I have seen it evolve. When I first started, I was the only female plumber on a site, the only female on a site. Working through them challenges and seeing where the industry is today is great, but it had to start somewhere. Someone had to start to go to get through to get where we are today. I do believe there is still a lot to go, but I do believe it's going in the right direction.
Excellent. And this is specifically about apprentices, but I'm going to try to translate it out to you. We know that young workers are much more likely to be injured at work, right? We know that they and, for instance, migrant workers they're in the categories of workers who are most likely to be exploited, and when they get injuries, they are more likely to be catastrophic injuries. So do any of you have recommendations around how so either apprentices or young workers could be supported, empowered to learn about safety in the workplace?
I think it's just giving them the tools and making sure they have the support behind them to what work environment they're actually in, and having good mentors, being able to show them where the risks are and not them doing something that is unsafe because they've been told to do it. I think the education within that is a big one.
Okay.
Ours is about education. Of course, we have students straight out of uni coming through or not quite finished university. So that last one I talked about, the methyl methacrylate, was a junior nurse had thrown it into the bin. Mentorship, as well as information and education is paramount.
Yeah, I think for us, like younger workers, it's a little bit tricky because like in our industry, I guess most of our young workers are sort of graduate students, and then, we know with the casualisation in our sector that has been a really big factor. And thanks to the work that's been done by the NTU that's sort of going across the sector now, I think we're seeing a change to that, which is really good, that it is creating these more permanent jobs. But we do also know that a lot of the roles that are being created now in our sector are these education-focused roles that have like double the amount of teaching in them than your traditional role, and we're seeing that that's creating new health and safety challenges, and we're actually negotiating around that at the moment. So I think, and a lot of those roles are at sort of that entry level. So I do think that, I don't really know what advice to give, but I do just know that, I think in our sector as well, there's a little bit of that, but I guess it's a little bit less trainees than perhaps both of your sectors.
And just one last question. So you've all had wins, right? You've all got runs on the board. Does that mean that next time you raise an issue, it gets easier to resolve once you've done the hard yards in that, or is it always a struggle?
I think the more you work in my industry where your safety committee, it then becomes what's more expected and the safety standard of what is expected. So if you set the tone of what is expected, when you put more issues forward, it's just putting together what is expected, and they do get easier and easier.
I totally agree with you, Jackie. Certainly.
I mean, I think there's, for us, an increasing awareness around the power of doing this stuff, which maybe doesn't translate into, 100% success rate, but I think the kind of literacy around what can be raised in this format and maybe how it sits outside, say, bargaining as another way to address issues as something that has become more aware, something that people are more aware of outside of those kind of very formal bargaining moments, but also, like Chloe said, we have this new contract, new work type, and it can't wait until bargaining. Like, it needs to be addressed now. There are people with workloads that are 80, 90 hours coming up over the next few weeks, which is like impossible and inhuman. And so this is the way that we need to kind of address this in the moment with those people on the ground. So I think if we can have more success on those, then there'll be more fronts to kind of work on.
Yeah, and I think let's just say that we've got the name and phone number of our OHS director at our university, so I think that's one benefit, is we've kind of got a direct line now because we've kind of been pestering them over so many different issues that, sometimes it can just help to be kind of a repeat offender in a sort of sense, but so I think that's also helpful, that sometimes if we don't get traction in our DWG, we've got a line we can call.
So what you're basically saying is it's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the better and stronger it gets, particularly also for the designated work group. Would you please thank Chloe and Ben, Jackie and Gay? All right, now we're going to break into groups. Now, just hear me out before you rush out, okay? Now, first off, a reminder that last year the government announced a review into the powers and protections for HSRs, something that you are all interested in, right? So we are running an online survey for HSRs and deputy HSRs to gather information about your experience so that we can advocate for change that will better support you in the work that you do. So we've had more than 800 HSRs and DHSRs fill out the form. Check out the summary on page 3 of your conference booklet, and if you haven't already participated in that, I encourage you to do that, all right? And you can do it anonymously by scanning the QR code. Now, we are going to move into breakout rooms. It goes like this. First off, the regional comrades who are with us, please log out and speak to your trainer. Everyone else, when I say go, wait for it. We have 10 minutes moving time to get to breakout rooms. We will then have a 50-minute breakout session before lunch. At 12:15, set your watches to it. Lunch will be served on the ground floor where morning tea was served, and after lunch, everyone will go back to the same room for 1:15 for the second part of the breakout, right? Now, if you are here, like every year, we are divided into union groups. In your show bags, there is a pink piece of paper. On one side is a list of union groups and the location of that group. Please get out your pink piece of paper and your conference booklet. Wait for it. Remember, I have to say the magic word for you to do it, all right? Now, if your union is listed, then you need to take the escalators up to level 2. There is a map on page 4 of your conference booklet. So step 1, look on the pink piece of paper for the list of unions. Step 2, if your union is listed, you will go up to level 2, right? And that's on page 4 of your booklet. All other participants, we have space in Clarendon Room A, which you will get to by going out, then to the right, to the right of the sign-in. So remember where you signed in? There are glass doors beyond that. You will go down there into Jeff's shed, and then on page 5 of your conference booklet, you are looking for where you are going, which is near Exhibition Room 1. All right, so if your union is listed on the pink slip, you will go to level 2, look at page 4 of your booklet. If it is not listed, then you will go down, or if you're not in your union, you will go down to Clarendon Room A. Now, there are VTHC staff who are ready to help direct you. And reminder that certificates of attendance will be available after the second breakout session from the registration desks. Please don't go up at lunchtime or any other time to get your attendance certificate. It will not be given to you. If you are needing to leave early for some reason, you should then contact and your conference to sort out your conference attendance, but we're not going to hand them out. We are unable to hand them out until after that second breakout session that you go back to after lunch. So enjoy the rest of your day and go.